I know from a good old ordinary intelligence viewpoint of how disturbing it is to many people here and plus you people at home that this doesn't have a name. And so in my continuing deep concern over you being upset at the old intellectual level, which you know I am, again I have come up with another ad hoc temporary name for this, at least for the, if not early spring, the first part of April. I have a new name for it for the time being, whatever the hell this is. The new name is this is the name now. That's the new name. Plus, I want to bring up a major corollary to something else I threw out some weeks back. Almost just threw it out to you, with very little said, that I mentioned that from a certain view, a quite real view, that everybody is funny. That literally everybody looks funny. The most handsome men, the most striking women, the most intelligent people in the world, all you got to do is take a 30 or 40 second film of them and then break it down and look, and within, I don't know how many frames would take 30 or 40 seconds, but somewhere within that time will be this person, an Einstein, the Pope, your mother, you. There'll be some, just have some person being just normally animated, that they're talking, going blah, 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 and there'll be at least one frame that if you turn it into a still, the person looks like. There is a major corollary to that I feel it incumbent upon me, since I'm the one who encumbers me, to point it out even further to you, and that's this, literally. I just might as well get out of the way before we start this evening. Go ahead and make a clean breast of it. Everybody's silly. And especially those who don't think they are. Now that about covers everybody else that I started the first version about everybody looks funny, because most of the people in the world, out in the city, that have the reputation, the renown for being very attractive, very handsome, very charismatic, very intelligent, very publicly impressive. By and large, if I may be culpable of understatement, those people do not think of themselves as being silly. No. Under very dire circumstances, while surrounded by mobs of people, they might be able to sustain a soft glancing blow of just a little humor at their expense. Very little, but I assure you, on their own, given to their own intellectual devices, by and large, such people do not, I repeat, they do not in any manner whatsoever think of themselves as being silly. And I just want to point out to you that everybody is silly. You understand this is not only a major corollary, it is bringing it down closer to our kind of level. I've cut down on the words. The first one was, from a certain view, everyone looks funny. And then I had to explain what I meant by funny. This one, I'm just telling you point blank, everybody's silly. And especially those who don't think they are. So just remember that. Especially any time that you think that I'm getting too serious. Because I'm not. You may be thinking I am. All right. Enough of that silly prologue. Are you ready? There is, again, I must tell you beforehand, as silly as this is, I'm going to tell you things that have never been told on this planet, this corner of the universe and the 3D world. Things that you're surrounded by. Yes, silliness, but other things too. there is to be silly about it, there's a major folly rampant in the history of man right up until today. Are we having problems? It's a particular folly that no one has ever seen, and it has specific pertinence for those who would like to actually live up to the fine, splendid, historically sacred name of this activity. As you know, this is a verb. Any of you who aspire to be worthy, to be known as a verbalite, I guess. This folly is this. It's trying to treat likes with likes. Now, I'm not speaking about medicine or some down home, I'm a half Cherokee Indian, come here and let me put a magic crystal in your pants type of thing. I'm talking about something specifically having to do with, let me say, the ad hoc geography that I have drawn out about humanity, that you can look at people for a while as being in their nervous system divided up in an observable manner, wherein there seems to be major locales in the nervous system that seem to have to do with thinking, the brain, and there seems to be, like in the another aspect of the nervous system, that which seems to be the passions then gets translated by the human brain as talking about it as being emotions. And then there seems to be almost the motor activities, the silent, fairly mechanical aspects of the body, all very ad hoc, all very misnamed, if indeed you think of any of those aspects as being separate. But having laid the groundwork for all of that silliness, all of that, now I want to tell you what I mean by the folly of trying to treat likes with likes. And by treat, I mean in the widest possible sense of the word. Treat being handle some aspect, look at some aspect of yourself in a pertinent manner, in a profitable manner, even in a potentially profitable manner, to either help some aspect of your behavior, your life, your existence, to study it, to enforce it, to make it more complex, to enrich it. That's what I mean by treat. And that you seem to have a passing malady even. I will not exclude that, to in some way heal up some temporary wound. The folly is trying to treat likes with likes, and it goes like this. Could have a B flat augmented. It goes like this. Of trying to treat ordinary feelings with ordinary feelings. Trying to treat routine thought with a routine thought. The kinds of examples. Let's start off with what seems to be feelings. Not the song. No, don't play it. No. Let's start off with what seems to be human feelings. Someone says, God, I'm depressed. The treatment. Their best friend, their parent, somebody says, well, you're just going to have to cheer up. If I wait here just a second, surely you can think without me doing it of almost an infinite variety of that. That a statement is made of some way I feel that seems to need some sort of a treatment or some sort of attention. And what is the attention? Very often given, just routinely given, is attempting to treat feelings with feelings. The intellectual version would be, somebody says, maybe a student says, God, or tells his parents, I'm just too dumb, I can't do math. And the father says, well, you're just going to have to try harder. In other words, my brain won't comprehend this. The treatment is, well, try harder. Oh, all right. I wish somebody had told me this before, right? Or I'm so depressed, suicide is the song that I seem to sing all day long. Well, what you need to do is cheer up. God, I should have asked you before, see? My little harmless sarcasm there, my little act, you do understand that that sort of attempted treatment, just in the regular flow of life, has, may I be so bold as to say, rather limited success. For you to say that I don't know, I just feel real depressed. And people around you, people who seem to be your friends, your family, that say, well, by God, you're just going to have to cheer up. And you think, well, I thought she was my friend. What kind of dumbass hand? If I could cheer up, I wouldn't be depressed, blah, 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 right? Or, I can't seem to learn this. Math, I've tried my best, and I can't do anything with math. Well, you're just going to have to try harder. What the hell? I've been trying harder. If I wasn't trying hard, I wouldn't say this. This kind of apparent wisdom, these kinds of attempts for humans to treat each other, and I might say themselves, of course, as you know, because you will take, everyone has taken this sort of apparent suggestion seriously, that it may originally seem to spring from without, that someone says, well, you just got to cheer up. Everyone does not turn in some sarcastic or sardonic manner upon their parents or friends and say, well, hell, if I could cheer up. They'll go, well, I guess you're right, and you've done it. And you'll walk off. And then later you'll say to yourself, that day, the next day, a year from then, you'll go, God, I'm depressed again. Or somebody will say, you look depressed. And you go, yeah. And you think, Jesus, I got to cheer up. It has limited success. Let's face it. To say that I'm so dumb I can't do this. Well, I've got to. In some way, I've just got to. All I'm going to have to do is try harder. What you're dealing with, in case you think I've changed the subject from the last few nights, is I want you to try and look back a while longer to the fact that we're dealing now with this attempted wisdom, these suggestions, these recommended treatments are on the basis solely of that which is self-referring, which is the folly of trying to treat likes with likes, of trying to treat ordinary feelings with ordinary feelings, attempting in some way to treat thinking with ordinary thinking. What you have got through such efforts on a basis that is all self-referring is you have that which is circular. There have been little glimmers of this constantly popping out in life. I don't know who to quote with this. I brought it up before, and surely I was not the first person to ever note it, because there's nothing all that mystical, just the surface of it, and that is that to define any word, the last word that you would ever look up in the dictionary would refer you back to wherever you started. Everyone understands that by now. That if you want to look up fully some word, and you just look up, you just open the dictionary, and you look under cylindrical, to fully comprehend that, or enigmatic, hog growers, if you look up any word to completely understand that word, you would have to go through every word in the dictionary. And the last one you got to, the last one, where have you started? If you started with enigmatic, and if there were 1,000,000 words in there, once you got down to the 1,000,000th word, there'd be somewhere in there that would say CF or synonym, or it would have in the definition the word enigmatic. And now you would realize, well, I'm going to have to, wait a minute, that's where I started. The point is, at the secondary level at which all this is operating, the city level, it is impossible to totally define any word. The closest you're going to come is this circuitous situation, that it is all self-reference. The only way that enigmatic can be defined, that does not seem so until you carry it far enough, but the only way it can be defined is CF enigmatic. That is, compared to enigmatic, which is a little silly because in truth what you'd go through in the city is you would have to run through every word in the dictionary after enigmatic, go through every one of them to some degree. Think about it. Check it out. And you would come back. The last one, when you got to the millionth word, or one short of the millionth word, in that definition would be the word enigmatic. And by then, of course, you'd probably figure out what that meant. You'd have to look it up. And then maybe you'd be smart enough to go, Jesus, that means I have been through every word in the dictionary. Now, at the city level, you could say, well, I have learned something. Or I have some idea of what enigmatic means. You may have some idea, but it cannot be fully defined. Nothing can on the secondary level, because the only frame of reference available on the secondary level is a self-reference. It is a circuitous situation, and there is no way out. So I could say that intellectual an example would be that you cannot define any word in the dictionary without defining every word. There is, no one comes to mind that's not intellectually to expand it, that surely all of you know from that grand and glorious tabloid, the Old Testament. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. Can anyone see that is a statement of the circuitous situation having to do with, let us say, the queue line socializing? Or if we're ordinary people, you could say the circuitous nature of ego activities. That this man passed off, as he is now historically, as a great wise king and writer. And of all the things, I just pulled out the line, but if you recall anything about good King Solomon, he pointed out all the women he had, all the money he had, all the wars he had fought, all the wars he had won. But he said he sat down and thought about it and realized, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. All he is saying is, my God, on this level, aren't things circuitous? I have attempted in some way to treat myself. If I wanted to be really ordinary, I guess I'd say that a man, he was saying he attempted to treat himself emotionally, sensually, which is fine, except he realizes here in his waning days, now that death is breathing down and the queue is moving up closer to the hill, and then he begins to think, wait a minute, something's wrong. And then he states, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. Now if, and I could produce a little more complex version of a Solomon, what he should have said would be circular, circular, all is circular. Well, that's what he's saying. That is what life says through some men here and there, and then it just passes off as an epigram, a proverb to remember, or perhaps you'll find it someday later in an egg roll. Another less, or another a little more disappointing, I guess, in the city level, is the kind of people that say things like, yeah, I could have gone to college like my friends did, but I got to thinking about it, I could have saved all my money, worked a nighttime job, gone to college, and what the hell, you're going to die anyway. I could have got my diploma and stepped off the curb and everybody shook my hand and get hit by a bus. But even if I didn't get killed on graduation day, everybody's going to die. It doesn't matter how much money you got, it doesn't matter who you are, how good you look, whether you're overweight. What does it matter? You lose weight and then you die, and people, what are they going by your casket and go, don't he look better since he lost all that weight? Who cares? That's another version of it's all circular. Circular, circular. All right, you've all had your laugh. Now let's get serious. Without people having ever had this situation described in this manner, the reality of it still exists. The knowledge of it permeates the human nervous system, and certain kinds of reactions, heretofore unidentified in any specific manner, have occurred. And one of them that I think could prove profitable to many of you is this. Once you see, no pessimism, no sarcasm, and it's not that we're all simply going to die. That's not the... That's not the punchline to this. But once you see, and that you have some idea now what I've been talking about for the last few nights about the secondary level, that at that level, the only frame of reference, the only way that a man can be America's leading expert in food is for a group of people to go into a dance with him at the secondary level. That it is not the basic minimum requirement to keep the man alive, although it may be his occupation. It is not a basic minimal requirement to keep any employees he has, some gophers, a secretary, alive. It is a secondary activity. It is necessary to life, or men would not be doing it. But in any individual instance, at any time you want to cut up the flow of time right there, this man being a famous food critic, this man being the Pope, take off his funny shoes, take off his suit, take away his press card, take away his little hat, and let's hope that he wouldn't die on the spot. It would not kill him the same way that a bolt of lightning would, that starvation would. The secondary activities, the only way that you have a frame of reference to talk about is a frame of reference that has no primary basis. That is, the man is the world's leading food, or America's leading food expert. And you go, well, okay, but of what primary significance? If he disappears, how's it going to affect life? If there was no such thing as a food critic, how would that affect your eating? None. It is necessary at the secondary level, but there is at the very, I'll go ahead and say it for those of you whose eyesight's getting good enough that every now and then you can look around corners, there is a kind of tenuous connection between that and primary activities. But it cannot in some way be defined. It cannot in some way be referred to in a manner that is unchangeable, that is stable, or as they say in the city, it cannot be described, that activity, in any way that is objective. There is no objective worth. There is no intrinsic value to a food critic. It may be interesting. It may be his life. He may hire other people. It may be as a reader of such things, it may be one of your primary important hobbies. But it is a secondary activity, and there is nothing resembling an objective basis by which to make any reference, any value judgment about the activity. That's just to bring you back up to date. In the manner of describing this as a circle, that all of this being a circuitous situation, without people thinking about it in this way, there's another interesting aspect to this, and that is this circuitous situation offers the promise of completion. That is, the circle, all you got to do is get around there and you're back. That is, well, I feel depressed. I feel depressed. Well, what you should do is feel more cheerful. It's almost, without people never having this description made, but in their own way the nervous system is driven to hear such ideas as, well, try harder or cheer up. Don't feel so depressed. It's almost as though they're looking at a racetrack, and that right where they look, that here I am, and it's not too good, but the damn thing goes in a circle, and it offers the unanalyzed, the non-verbalized, it offers the promise of pretty direct, perhaps fairly easy completion. But whatever the problem is, can be treated. Wherein, as far as such things actually exist, wherein it does just the opposite, because what it offers is eternal frustration. Because even if someone apparently looped the track and get back, it is still on the basis of self-reference, and the treatment does not seem to have taken. It is not a feeling that I have completed once around the track, that I have totally seen through this problem. It is never that fitting. Don't look at me like prove it. You wouldn't be sitting here if it was. There is no track, there is no circle to complete in the city in any way, whether it's you feeling bad, whether it's you being dumb, whether it's you in your vanity, no matter what it is, anything apparently that you can complete a circle. That, all right, well, I'm over here, but now that you call it a circle, I see what you mean. So it's something I'm trying to work out. I'm trying to make myself a better person. I'm trying to overcome some peccadillo, some weakness in my own character. And so what you're saying, if I could run around and get back here and just clean up all this, I'd be a better person. If you can apparently do that, and people do apparently do that, if they do it and they get back and people say, well, how do you feel now that you've done so and so, now that you quit some habit, now that you have taken up some new mode of behavior? And at first, of course, they holler, I feel great. Never felt better in my life since I quit drinking. And 2 hours later, they think, God damn, I wish I had a drink. Or if they don't have a drink, then months later they think, or somebody says, boy, I bet you feel better. You still don't drink anymore? No, I don't. Boy, I bet you feel better. You might think, well, I guess I do, but I sure don't feel as good as I did, or as I said I did 2 hours after I quit, 2 days after I quit. Now it's been 6 months. And people say, boy, I bet you feel better. What do you mean? Well, after you quit drinking. Oh, yeah, I really do. Boy, I bet you feel a lot better since you've returned to the church, since you've become a Christian or a Buddhist. I do. The thing is, I don't feel like I did right the day that they said, do you promise to be a Presbyterian? And they realize how boring you are, and they realize, well, you're already a Presbyterian. Don't write me. The apparent completion of one of these circles simply does not produce satisfaction. It will not treat whatever seemed to be the problem, because the problem was at the secondary level. And to complete all that seems to be possible on the secondary level, you're still dealing with a problem, a situation, a question, that it is being identified by secondary consciousness. That is, it has no objective basis. That doesn't mean it's not real to you. It doesn't mean that you're not suffering if you feel depressed, or if you feel dumb, or if you feel ugly. It doesn't mean that you don't feel it, that you don't think it. But it has no objective basis. Although you may say, I'm ugly. And you may say, and if somebody says, oh, come on, you're not. And you say, wait a minute. And you brought all your friends and family. And you said, come on, my family's always specialized in being truthful. They're a bunch of philosophers. Mom, Dad, tell them your opinion. And your mother and father and all your brothers said, yeah, he is ugly. You know, we love him, but he's ugly. And you went, there, see, there's objective basis that I'm ugly. That's not objective basis. Whatever it is, your thinking of it arises from the secondary level. Any apparent additional reaction besides yours, any support, or even any conflict, somebody says, oh, you're not ugly. What do I have to prove to you? If you feel like you're ugly and a whole bunch of people say, no, you're not ugly, does that have any more effect? At the secondary level, the normal activities that take place in which men engage themselves while waiting in the queue to go meet that great Oscar Mayer over the hill and turn into a ballpark Frank and Frankette. During that time, there is nothing resembling an objective basis. Call it anything you want to, but there is no objective basis, just using the city's terminology. That is, there's nothing steady. There's nothing without any prejudice. There's nothing that has some external foundation, which of course is one of the old ideas of one of the bases of people having the concept of a God, especially the good old hoary Old Testament and Christian God, that, you know, God's not here somewhere. He's not in Akron. He's, you know, way off. Or they used to believe he was up in the heavens before, you know, NASA messed up some of the, well, at least some of the Episcopalians and Presbyterians. The Baptists still don't know. The Southern Baptists, they say all those flights are actually staged in a film studio, and that God could still be right up there. But at any rate, the idea, it was a kind of very crude groping, searching for some kind of scientific, even psychological basis before I had the word of a God. The old context of God is way off somewhere, not just on Mount Olympus. The Greeks were still pretty slow walkers. God's got to be like, you're not sure where, but He's out there somewhere. That is, He's away from us. That is, there is some way outside of a loop, because He's out there. The idea of the circle, once you can see it, and there being no objective basis, which is part of what I started to say is also what God served without even people analyzing it by any means intellectually that way, but that God would be the objective standard. And that those who believed in the afterlife and day of judgment, there it was. That there was an objective standard. And sooner or later, you're going to be measured by it. An objective standard. Well, what is it? Well, it's God. Well, with many nervous systems throughout the history of man, that is sufficient. To say, well, it's God. Well, you might say, well, you'll hear more. People say, well, not necessarily, but, you know, I believe you. Because if there is any objective standard, it's God, and if it is, you know, what's there to say? What am I going to say? You just have to say, well, never mind, I'll do the best I can, but I believe it. I think it's true. That would be the closest thing, or that would be the reality of an objective standard. But back to what all of you should be able to feel, at the ordinary level, the level of the kinds of activities that I've been referring to as the secondary level, just anything right now, make it easy for you to look at, anything that is not an immediate basic requirement to keep you alive, then it's secondary. It is necessary to life in general, but it is secondary for the sake of this ad hoc mapping I've been doing. At that level, there is nothing. Since I brought it up, it shouldn't be of any great interest in more personally to you people, but the idea of God, the reason that wouldn't even fly intellectually with people, in other words, was never satisfying to large numbers of people, is the concept, of course, came about through secondary intellectual activity. And so even though people would say, well, wait, there is an objective standard, you are wrong. There's an objective standard and it's God. I was trying to give some credit to the cruder, more simplistic history of life through man, that was an attempt to try and grasp an objective standard. But it was secondary activities that produced that, is why it can't go any further. And you say, well, wait a minute. Then what is, all right, you say God. The guy says, yeah, is the objective standard. And by God, you mean the person or the thing that created all this, that actually did it. The person says, yeah. And you say, well, all right, I'm interested in that. If there's an objective standard, because a man, without any doubt, could learn something. So what is the objective standard? Not just God, but what's the manifestations of God? And so here you go. If it was a Jew told you that, he's going to describe a Jew God. If a Baptist tells you that, he's going to describe a Christian God. If a Hindu told you that, he's going to describe a Hindu God. Do you hear? The idea that, wait a minute, there's a God and that would be the objective standard, and your intellect would go, hey, I like that. Tell me about him. Then if it's a short green person with purple hair that told you this, he's going to start describing the objective standard as what? It's going to be rather short. It's probably going to have a certain greenish tint to it. So the idea that there is an objective standard has simply never been available. At the 3D level, it's not possible, because what they're trying to describe has more dimensions, and so anything they described is faulty. Not necessarily in relationship to John Cleese, but it is faulty. If what I did want to get some of you to try to focus on, now that I pointed out in words, once you begin to see that things run in the city and are situated in a circuitous manner, without any exception, and without people even knowing this before, there is that continuing feel in the human nervous system that this is true. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. I feel depressed. Try harder. I'm too dumb to do this. Try harder. There seems to be the promise of success, potential success, because of the fact that it is just a circuitous situation. All I got to do is get around the track and I've got the thing cured or helped a lot. I'm better off. It's just, whether you can see it right now or not, is another one of life's, I suggest to you, coup de maîtres. It's beautiful. It holds the promise, the potential promise of immediate, observable, and fairly straightforward success. Whereas, whilst it offers nothing but eternal frustration, and nobody ever notices it, except they get real tired from running these laps. Boy, I bet you feel a lot better since you run that lap and you quit drinking. I really do. There is a certain practical area of this that is, if I don't lose you, I suggest is very interesting, because it gets even stickier than anything I've talked about tonight. So from a practical area, even though I've given out things like this before without using these kinds of terms, a possible practical use of what I've been talking about would be inter alia, such notions as this: that rather than falling into the ordinary futile folly of trying to treat likes with likes, if you were depressed, you know, boy, I'm depressed. If you told me that, and I was in a hurry, which I'm not going to analyze you anyway, but if you knew what you were doing, if anybody knew what they was doing that you know, and you said, God, I'm depressed, I feel depressed, you would treat them, or you would treat yourself, not with feeling, thought, or action. That is, the most direct one would be, well, I feel depressed. We'll go run a mile. I might still feel depressed. We'll run 2 miles. Well, what if I'm still depressed after I run 2 miles? Run 3 fucking miles and then ask me. Somewhere along the line, as most of you know by now, somewhere along the line, you will cease feeling depressed. You'll be more into feeling tired. or maybe exhilarated. Or a small version of this, a version of it nonetheless, is treating feelings not with likes, not with feeling, but instead of action this time, treat it with intellect, which is one view of the basis of talking analysis. Formal psychology or psychiatric treatment, people do it to each other. I've done it to you. I've told you to do it to yourself. But it's like, I feel real depressed. Well, sit down, have a seat, and let's talk about it. No, I feel depressed. I feel so depressed. Well, all right. Well, just relax a minute. Well, just tell me how it started. There is a similar situation. It's quite probable. In the same way that I said, after you run 1, 2, 3 miles, you're not going to be feeling depressed anymore. Not then. You get somebody talking, and it doesn't really matter what. You say, well, how long have you been depressed? God, I don't feel like talking about it. Really, I'm depressed. Well, I understand that. I've been depressed, but I just wondered, was there something that seemed to trigger it off today? Get somebody talking. Just on and on and on. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the person no longer depressed. They do not feel the depression they said they felt, and don't worry about whether the person talking to them actually has spent 12 years studying medicine and did their postdoctorate work in psychiatric training. You can do it to yourself. I've told you how to do it to yourself. That's no big trick. You don't have to go to school. Because you continue to question yourself. One aspect it's like you just continue to ask. I've told you about doing that to other people under different guises for different reasons, but you can do it to yourself. I feel terrible. Oh, well, what's wrong? Well, I don't want to talk about it. Well, I don't blame you, but is there any reason that you don't want to talk about it? Well, it's got nothing to do with the way I feel. I just feel depressed, and talking is not going to help. Well, have you ever done it before and it didn't help? I don't bug. Oh, I just wondered, have you actually ever talked when you felt depressed? I don't remember. Well, if you had done it, do you think you would remember if you had actually sat down and tried to talk to somebody about when you're depressed? I mean, do you think you would remember it, or? I don't know. I guess, in other words, you're saying you could have been so depressed at the time that even if you did talk about it, now you can't remember it? God, it sounds like it's possible, doesn't it? Well, yeah, I guess it is. I've never actually done it myself, but, you know, I was also wondering, when you get real depressed like this, is it something specifically that annoys you that if me or somebody says, hey, well, you want to talk about it, or do you just feel like it's useless? I guess it's useless. Yeah, but you said you'd never done it before. Well, yeah. So, I mean, but you intrinsically feel that it would be absolutely useless. That it couldn't accomplish anything by somebody like me that, you know, actually was just saying, well, if there was something specific that made you depressed today. You know, I don't know. I always felt like that, you know, when you're depressed, and you don't really want to talk about it. Well, you said that, but now as friendly as we are, how about it was only a minute or so ago that we were talking, you said something about, you even used the word depressed. I knew you weren't whining to me. I mean, that's what friends are for. I didn't mind you saying it, but you even brought it up yourself, and now you say that you don't want to talk about it. Yeah, it is kind of weird. Well, I wonder if there's something about the nature of depression, you know, chemical in the brain or something, that immediately your first thought when you're depressed is that maybe you want to let somebody know, and then as soon as they show any concern is to go, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, it could be true. A couple of minutes and you're not depressed. Am I right? Hell yeah, I'm right. That's a good thing about he who defines controls. I make all this up and I can make it come out anywhere I want to. I'm the one that defines it. We got to turn the tape over. No, we don't. Hold it. I'm in charge. We will not turn the tape over. Tell that tape not to run out. Well, I don't think there's any sense throwing my weight around. Let the tape run out and turn it over. Pointing out that rather than attempting what is ultimately the folly, the futility of trying to treat, in the full sense of that word, likes likes, that is, of telling somebody that's depressed, well, don't feel depressed, feel happy. My brain, I'm too dumb to think, to learn math. Well, make your brain just try it harder. I was pointing out, you would treat in a more efficient manner. You would attempt to treat feeling, not with feeling, but with thought or with action. You can do the same with thought. Not going to make you smarter right off the bat. But if someone's saying around and saying, well, I have been working with a certain problem, I've been trying to figure something out, and I have walked the floor, and it must be right here in front of me, somebody trying to invent something, somebody trying to work out, to take some mathematical theory down some line, and they just feel like I'm almost there, but I can't do anything. This is not all that unknown. The guy will take a break, go outside and play a little croquet, or go play frisbee with his dog, or go swim a few laps, and say, I got out of the pool, I'd been up all night trying to figure this out, how to make it work, how to make this theory fly, or how to make this new invention, how to put together the last little missing piece. And I was about to die, so I thought, well, I'll swim a couple of laps and then just go to bed, I guess. And I was getting out of the pool. There it was 3 in the morning. I was shivering, and I was thinking, you know, how dumb can you be to do this? And I reached for the towel, and suddenly it went, bow, and it hit me just like that. As fast as I could run back in the house, I knew I had it. History is replete with such stories. Treating, apparently, the intellect, that is, thinking, not with thinking, but in this case, action. Now, using my ad hoc nervous system geographical mapping of man into the primary areas of the body running its own course and its own affairs, and then in the middle of the nervous system that which seems to be the passions of man, and then higher up in the brain the thinking, then I have, let's see, I talked about feeling and thinking. I left out, yeah, okay. So, we got what would appear to be that one area that I haven't mentioned yet in this context that I said that had to do with apparently the pragmatic applications of such ideas. The body, the functions of man's physiological being, if we may for a second, arbitrarily, artificially, and erroneously separate it from human feeling and human intellect and just talk about the body. Then, knowing how the ordinary intellect loves symmetry, then surely that I can say, or somebody will say, I guess I'll be the one that you expect to say it, then the treatment of the body would be not to try and treat the body, but to da-da-da-da-da, right? Well, it gets more interesting than that, because it ain't da-da-da-da-da-da, is it? I seem to be dying of cancer of the liver. Oh, cheer up. I seem to have become so nearsighted that I can't even read anymore. When you're trying to read, just think about words and dictionaries and stuff, and then just try harder. Just think about how it used to be that you could see better. Oh, all right. It doesn't seem to have an exact parallel, does it? But there is this throughout history, right up until today, and it's even now being, at least temporarily here and there, cloaked with more of a scientific aura, that indeed thinking and feeling can have some effect. The Greeks were talking about it, the Romans were talking about it, Billy James Hargis, Jimmy Swaggart, Oral Roberts, scientists today, no sense trying to quote any, but as most of you should know just from common reading, after all these thousands of years you now have people in the medical profession. I'm talking about real doctors, not psychiatrists. Real doctors beginning to say there seems to be, maybe not yet statistical evidence, which of course is real evidence, but there seems to be some strong hint that a man might be able to, in some way through his thinking or his feeling, he might be able to, maybe not cure himself of cancer, but might produce a more conducive environment internally some way. We're not sure. But all these stories about voodoo, about one person being able to harm somebody else, or conversely, these stories in other societies or even other times of people apparently, some shaman, if they don't get down as personal and put their intellectual hands on Oral Roberts, which I'm not going to comment, to believe that there are people that's been around that here and there can go, be healed, get better, and people seem to get better. Well, of course, now that can't be that they're calling down power of the gods, but it has to do with some kind of power suggestion that the people believe that they're going to get better, and then sometimes, not enough evidence now to statistically be assured of it, but there seems to be, anecdotal evidence that there might be something worthwhile investigating. But notice, there is not a beautifully symmetrical, and a tripartite situation can be symmetrical, of course, that I point out that if you're going to treat, in the full sense of the word, feeling, you would do it by action, that is, movement, the body, do something, or by thinking. And if you're going to deal with trying to treat thinking, you would do it by calling into play not ordinary thinking trying to heal itself or to treat itself, to investigate itself, to deal with itself, but bring in action or bring in feeling. But now when it gets down to the level that you are dealing with that which does action, if we indeed could separate, and are doing so for the sake of this little temporary foolishness, the full physiological motor activities of the body without any consideration of intellect or human feeling, then you cannot say in that same way that right, the treatment of the body, the strictly physical life of man, is not to be treated physically. You treat it either by thinking or by feeling. The parallel is by no means perfect. It is by no means anything resembling symmetrical. There is a reality to it now. But there is nothing as quasi-automatic as me saying, which I can validly say, that you can be depressed, and if you'll take my treatment, go out and run, I'm still depressed. Go run some more. I'm still depressed. Go run some more. You do know before you die, you won't be depressed. Or I could talk, or you could do it to yourself. When I played the part a while ago of both people, I kind of drug you along, and I must have spent, 90 seconds to where it all seemed to make sense, and I even smiled the part about, well, that is kind of weird, like the guy the voice that started out depressed. But, even though there is some validity, there is no parallel that would seem to be as automatic as that is you're depressed. You are feeling depressed, and you go out and run 2 miles. It takes you 30 minutes, and you come back, and you do not feel depressed. That it's a quasi-automatic treatment. There is nothing of a specific parallel that you can do that operates in that at least quasi-automatic way that, all right, I am spitting up part of my lung, so I guess they say I've got at best 2 weeks to live. Let's see. If I sing a happy song and tap dance for 30 minutes, maybe it'll stop. You might not feel depressed, or some of you are feeling depressed about dying of lung cancer, but as far as your lung being healed and all growing back a nice pink rosy lung just because you tap dance and sing Lady Be Good and Don't Worry Be Happy for 30 minutes instead of running, there is no assurance. There is nothing resembling that almost automatic treatment. There is enough validity, though, that people continue to believe in faith healing. They believe in laying on hands with each other. They believe in praying to gods. They believe, and those that are not that religiously inclined nowadays, believe in the power of positive thinking. A lot of them believe in things that apparently, I'll go ahead and throw them in, they've been around, they just go by new names now, the crystals or icons and things. If I could just get my hands on it, if that station, if I could still pick it up in Del Rio, Texas, that was still selling the little splinters from Jesus' cross, sing those little vials of Jesus' sweat. And they sold those for about 20 years. I used to think, God, that man must... How much can one man sweat? But that was a small argument to make because they played such great music. Although there is some validity, there is not that direct, almost automatically predictable alteration that behavior, that is action, can have on thinking and feeling, that feeling can have on thinking, and the ones I went through. But when you get to the level of trying to make this symmetrically applicable to being able to just on the spot, within some immediate, some predictable range of time and circumstance, like for 30 minutes I'm going to think a certain thing, or I'm going to make myself feel a certain way, which I hadn't reminded you people in several years, but and I know it always puts a little shock into you people who know. You can make yourself happy. Yeah, but it doesn't count because it's a fraud. In 30 minutes, to say the least, I can make myself happy. But all of that, I can make myself happy, and I can think good thoughts, or I can think healthy thoughts for 30 minutes, and there's no assurance whatsoever that my lung's going to grow back. The one that's growing right now, the one that's taking me down with it, there's no assurance. Not in the way that going out and running for 30 minutes, I cannot go run for 30 minutes and come back depressed. The way I feel right now, the way I'm thinking, there's almost some idée fixe in my head, wondering where is my wife? Where is my wife? Where is my boyfriend? How will I pay my taxes? Whatever it is, that's driving me nuts. Go out and run. You don't have to just run. If that's driving you nuts, sit down. If you don't want to go run, sit down and go back and start studying Greek. Or go back to the last time you picked up a book on just entry-level, college-level algebra, to go back and actually sit there and work on chapter 1 again. Do that. And it's a similar manner to getting out running. You can treat feeling with thought and action. You can apparently treat thinking with feeling and action. And they can have a predictable, if you know how to do it, they will have a predictable and an immediate. That is, within less than an hour, sometimes minutes, a predictable, immediate, and observable effect, wherein there is not a perfect corollary of trying to treat the actions of man. That is, the body, the physiology of man through thinking and feeling. There is a validity to it, but it is not that immediate. It is not that predictable. Would anyone like to know why this might be? All right. Are you ready? You can look at this tripartite territorial division I've made of man, up and down his nervous system into, it seems to be thinking and feeling, and then let's just say action, the body. Right there, if there was such a line, from there up, feeling and thought, I would have to describe, or to use my mapping and my definitions, as secondary activities. Whereas below that line, we're dealing with primary activities, and on that basis, you cannot treat primary activities, primary problems, by secondary methods. That's why it's not predictable. That's why there seems to be no direct corollary, no direct way to get into the body, into a man's health, into his actual physical being, as directly through the feelings or the intellect as you can turning it around the other way. Up here, you're doing, as it were, if you recall the other way I was drawing out a picture a night or so ago, this is almost kids play acting. Not literally, as you know. But these two can almost, like they're all dressed up, maybe feelings is in mommy's clothes, and thinking's in daddy's clothes, and they're just playing like we're real people. And then one of them says, hey, I know what, let's play. I saw this on TV. Let's play hypnotize each other. It's almost as though the little feelings dressed up like mommy can say, hypnotize the thinking. There's a way in which this will participate, such as, well, hey, I'm not feeling good. And this one says, well, won't you take him and go out for a run? There's almost a hypnotizing effect of one of them telling the other one, either go do that, or if you don't do that, wait a minute. You don't have to go run. Stay here, feelings, and let me talk to you. And it goes through something apparently like I did, a similar version, about, well, tell me why you feel bad. Let's play psychiatrist. You lay down here, and I'll play like I'm a psychiatrist. How long have you felt depressed? And it's almost as if they can hypnotize one another and say, let's pretend. Won't you pretend that you're no longer depressed? And the little feelings, if it's dressed up like the girl, goes, well, I don't. In the same way, using this metaphor, they cannot hypnotize the primary level. They cannot tell, this is not exactly it, by the way, of course, but they cannot turn to the body if it operated in such an exclusive, separate fashion, which it does not, but they cannot turn to it as they can apparently do to each other and turn the body and say, hey, pretend you're well. But the feelings can apparently turn the mind and say, hey, pretend you're real upset. I'm upset. Come on, be upset with me. And it takes somewhere between that long and that long for most people to go, hell, I am upset. I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it. God, pissed? Yeah, I'm pissed. I didn't even know it. I'm glad you brought it to my attention. Or, with all the other versions I was doing, that it can be upset and the brain go, well, hey, let's get intellectual here. Let's distract you. I see you're feeling kind of put out. Depressed is what I am. All right, you're feeling depressed. But let's talk about, I don't want to talk about being depressed. Oh, all right, well, let's do this. have you seen that new movie with so-and-so? I don't talk about I'm depressed. What, have you just seen it? Just tell me that. So it's like another little game of hypnotize. In a few minutes, feelings are no longer feeling like they were. There is no objective basis. For the thinking to say I'm dumb, there's no objective basis. For the feelings to say I'm no good, I'm depressed. It's almost as though they can hypnotize one another. They can play like, let's don't be that way. Or let's be this way. The secondary can treat itself in a manner that is altogether beyond the pale of turning that kind of activity, that kind of attention, that kind of information, that kind of energy on the primary activities of man. There is no direct way that an ordinary person can turn their thoughts, their feelings on the body. So, rather than using these kind of artificial descriptions and my terms, although they're quite ordinary of the thinking and feeling and physiological aspects of man, rather than that, look at the former two as being secondary activities which, relatively speaking, they are to the life of the body. The absolute minimal, animalistic health preservation of the body that cannot be treated. The primary activities, primary problems arising, problems based at the primary level cannot be treated directly with secondary medicines, with secondary attention, with secondary activities of any kind. They cannot. Whereas the reverse is not true. That's why running will stop somebody from being depressed. It's not just small problems. Some of you remember, it's not just saying that a primary activity such as running, not just to cure depression. There's even trickier ones. Some of you have been around long enough. One time I had occasion, I pointed out, you could have somebody, a great spiritual teacher of some kind, somebody talking to the gods constantly. And if I in some way could trick him to get out and start running every day, the gods would quit talking to him. And of course, he'd very shortly quit running, unless he had a backup occupation. No, the reason I bring that up is not just that I'm saying that problems, such as depression, I guess everybody that's depressed considers it a problem. It's not just that something apparently negatively here, which is still a circuitous definition, but the individual, which is all that matters, would say, well, it's negative, I don't feel good. It's not just that running would cure that. Running could cure things, that is, treat things that somebody didn't find to be a problem, such as a guy that says, yes, I'm a prophet. God talks to me. Every day he talks to me. And once a week I deliver messages to my flock. In some way, if I could trick this guy, if I could hypnotize him and get him to take up running with me every morning, first thing Monday, by next Sunday he wouldn't have a message to bring to the people. Not if he'd stick with me. Not if all week he'd run with me and do a little exercise, maybe go hit a gym a little while. The gods would no longer talk to him. I was just trying to give you a wide spectrum. Any activity going on at the secondary level can be treated, that is, can be affected by more primary activity. But the converse is not a beautiful, is not a direct, symmetrical possibility. I wish this had some real important possible use for you individually. And as I've been talking, that's one reason I've been stalling around here talking in circles for the last 30 minutes, trying to think of some way to finish off tonight and try and show you that this might have some, because I thought tonight surely I was on the right track, that I could come up with something that not only would be interesting to the general activities of human life, but in some way I could right then make a tropical statement of how this has a parabolic, a metaphorical importance to you individually, and for the life of me I just can't come up with it. So well, that's not as silly as saying everything has a metaphorical importance and by God you missed it. Well, yeah, you missed it. There's one more thing that I will say, since I gave us another name for this, for the week or the night. I could describe this kind of activity for the night as being the attempt as taking a circle into being a spiral. Because if you can do that, then you can see the infinite growth of life. When you can see it from a different, more complex dimension, you can see that one loop, the transversing of one circle, the effort involved, does not complete anything. It does not represent a totality of any effort. It would, at that level, be only what it appears to be. That, well, Art, you were here. We're talking about a circle. The only thing that happens is, Art, you were there, and you didn't like it, or for whatever reason, and so through some kind of great effort, you or me or somebody, you managed to do that. Which, if your intelligence goes no further than that, is what I told you, is eternal frustration. Now, if your intelligence is above that personally, you don't look at it as being frustrating. You don't look at it as being positive or negative. It simply is. It's an oak tree. It's a cloud. It's a badger with a merit badge. There's what it is. But you see that at the ordinary level at which the human nervous system operates, that which seems to hold out the promise of some success, that is, well, all you got to do is get around the track. That the same thing that seems to hold out that promise, it's not like, well, hey, there's some infinite pathway that you just got to fly off into the cosmos and not know what you're doing. No. No. You feel depressed? Just calm down and cheer up. It's not like saying, well, what you got to do is I'd head off somewhere toward the Orion constellation and, write me. I don't know. The answer can't be here. If the answer was here, of people being depressed and frightened, if the answer was here, they wouldn't be that way, right? And you have to go, well, yeah. The answer is with the gods. Well, I don't believe in that kind of stuff. All right, the answer is in the far reaches of the universe. People from other planets. It's somewhere else, other dimensions. You think, well, yeah, it's got to be. Got to be. As long as your intelligence stays at this level, that's what I was trying to get you to see. Not enough of you seem to react for the 3 times I pointed out. Even without having my definition in mind, there's built into the human nervous system that there is possible treatment immediately available. But it's on a circuitous basis, and they don't recognize it. So, well, it seems to hold out the promise, not that you got to just fly off to God knows where. It's fairly simple. You don't feel good? Cheer up. All right. So it seems to be the possibility, always, once somebody points out the proper course of action, or someone that gives you some decent suggestion, that it seems to be that relief may be just a lap away. But what it does is holds out the eternal promise, unrecognized, and delivery of frustration. To be able to turn a circle into a spiral is you no longer see it that way. You see it that is the way it is seen. That is the way in which it enacts itself at the 3D level. But once you see that it's not a circle, if it was indeed a circle, it would be dead. There would be no growth going on. It would be a evolutionary, a fully dimensional cul-de-sac. That instead of it being a circle, look at, we're looking at an angle so I can draw a spiral, or you're looking at a circle obliquely. Instead of that, you're dealing with, and if you can see it, even that which seems to try and complete itself at this level. When people seem to try and change, when people seem to try and go back and pick up something they dropped, you see that you can never pick up exactly the same thing you dropped. If you did, it's dead. Or if you did, you're dead. You can't do it. You can't find the same thing you lost. Never. You cannot quit the exact habit that you had. You can't start some new behavior that was exactly like you thought. Because if you drop it, if you see it, by the time you pick it up, it's not the same thing. To turn a circle in your own intelligence, to be able to see that a circle everywhere is a spiral, then you no longer see a dead end. Nobody else even sees a dead end. They see it as being the promise of eternal possible success, whereas it offers eternal frustration. So you see beyond all of that that that's not the problem. The problem is you do not see at ordinary level that all circles, that all that seems to be the possibility of a completion here is a spiral. Which again, those who like this, if you can't do it on your own, gives rise in some nervous systems throughout history is the idea of karma, eternal reoccurrence. But notice they've got it down, it sounds like, the idea of eternal reoccurrence. It almost sounds like, which is another manifestation, you can follow this right quick before I quit, of a circle apparently holding out hope, immediate hope and possibility of success, wherein it does just the opposite than the idea that many people get taken with, especially when it's an exotic idea to them that came from another part of the world, another time. Eternal reoccurrence. There's the answer. Think about that for a second. To think, God, what a great concept, what a splendid idea. That's what's missing here in Christianity or Judaism or whatever, in Alabama atheism. There's what's missing. Now it all makes sense. There's a justice to it, a beauty, perhaps even a symmetry. Eternal reoccurrence. Ah, boy, I love it. And they wander off. Think about it. Eternal reoccurrence. That's a breakthrough? Now, of course, I know this. If I got people right now and tried to push this verbally, believing such, they go, now wait a minute. You're trying to be sarcastic, because it does not mean necessarily that it's the same fucking thing over and over when we say eternal reoccurrence, because through some great effort you make, you don't have to have the same thing over, because all you got to do is change and do better, and then next time you come around, it won't be exactly the same. And then I could do this. I go, well, now I see. So all you've got to do is change in this life, and then you won't actually come out the same thing next time. It won't be literally eternal reoccurrence. It'll be eternal sort of reoccurrence. That's it. In other words, all right, in other words, if you can change now, then the next time around will be different. And they'll go, yeah. And of course, being the big-hearted bastard I am, do you think I'd be so cheap as to ask them if somebody know where to put my finger and make them tell the, what do they call it, the truth? For me to say, do you find it possible to change in this life? And then we'll go, well, Jesus, you didn't have to ask me that. But it seems to hold the possibility that, yes, we call it eternal reoccurrence, but if you change this time around, then you don't have to keep living the same life over and over. And everybody whistles and runs off and sings, thank God we're not Presbyterian. But nobody wants to face the fact of, well, all right, it's eternal reoccurrence, the same thing over and over and over, yeah? But if you change now, if you get to, change, which I assume you mean do better by some definition. So if you change now, then it's not literally eternal reoccurrence. That is the same thing over and over. All you got to do is change some now, and then the next time around will be altered. Right. And I wouldn't have the heart, would I? And you wouldn't have the intelligence to do it to yourself, would you? To say, well, all right, even if that's true. Do you see that again, it's like it holds out the promise if you took this, which of course is a variation of simple life after death, but this one sounds like that it's more than one judgment day, that you get more than one chance. But what it does is the same thing as being able to see that it is all a circuitous situation which seems to hold the promise of fairly immediate, observable success. All I got to do is complete the circle again. Whereas what it actually does is offer eternal frustration. That's the same thing as, wait a minute, all right, now I got it. Thank God I finally finished high school and moved up north and got away from those Southern Baptists and all these provincial thinkers, because now I read about the concept of eternal reoccurrence. That you die and you keep coming back and you get a chance to work out your, what do they call it, your Kellogg's or something. You get to work all that out. It sounds wonderful. That you're paying off these debts, and every time you come you get a little bit better. And you whittle down on your karma, or you build it up, or you thin it out over here. Except for this fact, that under ordinary conditions, the idea of changing who you are is probably sillier than me and you put together. I mean, it's just a joke. But as long as you think about eternal reoccurrence, that you keep coming back, and all you got to do is each time get a little better. You mean change? Well, yeah, sure. You got to change to get better, but you get better. You don't get worse. But you mean you got to change? Well, yeah, right. And then you listen for somebody to go, oh my God. Now I realize what it is I just said to myself. You will not hear the sound in the city. You can listen very quietly. You can hear them sometimes collecting the garbage, cleaning the streets. You can even hear the ocean at times. But you do not in the city hear. You can listen. And you can ask them. You can ask your own city. You mean it's eternal reoccurrence. Like the same thing over and over and over, like a circle, just yeah. But you're saying that you don't just keep having to go around the same circle over and over, because this time around, or next time around, or the time before, whenever, all you got to do is change. And then it will not be literally eternal reoccurrence. It might be rebirth, but it won't be reoccurrence. That all you got to do is change right now. And they go, yeah. Don't wait to walk off or to stand there and listen. Don't wait for that. If you're waiting for that, then the perception that a circle of the situation of being alive at the level at which I am intelligent is a basis of self-reference. That which I think of as being me and everyone else culturally, intellectually, sensually, artistically, are all primary manifestations, necessary ones, but primary manifestations of something else. And that everything that I hold dear beyond my own health, beyond my body making a few more years, everything else I can see is on the basis of security. It does not offer any hope of change, but nor is it a dead-end street. It is the limits of ordinary intelligence. That's all I can see is at that level. The idea of change being the way out is just part of the kind of masterstroke I was describing of people believing that there is always immediate possible change available, which is necessary out there in that line. Why else would people stand there for 65 years in the rain, getting pig shit on their new shoes, being spat on, being subject to strange odors emanating from those around them, birds flying overhead, the IRS still alive? Why would people put up with that? What would cause them, us, to be that simplistic? Of course, I'll tell you, having simplistic intelligence. Believing, thinking that at that level, the completion of a circle, the possible alteration of secondary activities, that I might be able to change my hobby, and that things will drastically alter. And then I'll never notice that I don't change or anybody else changes as long as I think about it. Then I can last another 20 years, I guess. Sure you can. Those kind of dreams come with your place in line. That's part of you standing there. I guess that's enough silliness for one night. Don't forget, I like to wrap up things in sort of a... Oh, I don't know. So could we have the camera back? Remember, if we were going to try and give some intellectual nourishment to the kind of pleas and cries that I know many of you experience still about, well, what is this? Besides you just talking, but I mean, what is it? Admit it. If it had a name, then one of the names it could be for the time being is, this is a verb. All right? Another part of the intro to now make it the extro. Is listen to me. Everybody is silly. I said everybody. I didn't say, discounting you, me, your mother, your priest, your rabbi, anybody. I'm telling you, for a fact, everybody is silly. And especially those who don't think they are. Until we meet, I want you to think about that, because that's serious stuff.